Welcome to PHT in the Morning with your host, Pastor David Miller from the Pentecostal Holiness Tabernacle in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of PHT in the Morning. I am Pastor David Miller, and I would like to share a few scriptures and a few thoughts with you this morning from the book of Lamentations. Of course, we know that Jeremiah, the weeping prophet, wrote this book. And we want to look at Lamentation, chapter 3 and verse 19. I'll read a couple verses here. He said, "Remembering mine affliction and my misery, the wormwood and the gall. And he said, my soul hath them still in remembrance, and is humbled in me. This I recall to mind, therefore have I hope. It is of the Lord's mercy that we are not consumed, because his compassions, plural, compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness." These are some powerful verses. I love these verses here in Lamentations 3, especially verse number 22 and 23, that it's of the Lord's mercies that we're not consumed. His compassions never fail, and his mercy is new every morning. So I know they're new every morning because God's word said it. And I also know because after he said they are new every morning, he continues with great is thy faithfulness. So God is faithful to give us new mercies every single day. So when you got up this morning, it really didn't matter what you faced yesterday, what you faced last week, what you were going through, or you might feel like you just didn't have any mercy from God. But I want to tell you, when you woke up today, you started all over, not only a brand new day, but brand new mercy. So it's new every morning. And let's look at just a couple verses here in this same chapter. Like the Bible said, first of all, in verse number 1, he said, I am the man that has seen affliction. So he's talking about his own self. I have faced, I have saw, and I've went through, in other words, afflictions. And he goes on to say, I have been brought into darkness. And have you ever felt like that? That you have been so afflicted and so many things go wrong, you felt like you were brought into a dark place? I've had folks tell me just recently, it just feels like I'm in a total darkness. Well, he goes on and he said he felt like the Lord had turned against him. In verse number 3, he said, surely against me he has turned. And he said, his hand has been against me all day. He goes on, talks about other things throughout. I'm just going to go through a couple with you here. Like number 5, he said he felt like that something like a wall was built up against him. And he felt compassed. And once again, he said, I've been set in a dark place. In verse number 7, right here, in verse 7 and 8, I want you to look at these verses with me today. Verse number 7, he said, he hath hedged me about that I cannot get out. He hath made my chain heavy. So I'm reading these verses to see if you can feel like you have went through these same kind of things. Maybe you can, say, hey man, I feel just like him. He said, I feel like I'm hedged about. Verse 5, going back there, he said he felt like he was a wall built up against him, compassed about. And he said, hedge me about, that I cannot get out. So I'm sure that I'm talking to some folks today that you feel like the problems you faced or the things you've had to go through, you felt like you were in such a dark valley, such a dark trial that you were surrounded in a place you couldn't get out. And maybe, like verse 7, he continues, maybe you felt like this. He said, he hath made my chain heavy. I mean, maybe you feel like that you are just completely chained by the enemy, and you felt like there's nothing you can do to fix this or to get out. And in verse number 8, he said, when I cry and shout, he shutteth out my prayer. So he felt like here, he said, even when I cry and when I shout and pray. So if you notice here, it wasn't like he wasn't praying. He was praying, and he was praying with a loud voice to the point that he said, I shout. So he was yelling or shouting out his prayer. And he still felt like his prayer was shut up. So have you ever felt like that? Like you're praying and my prayers are not answered, Brother Miller. My prayers are not answered. I've asked, I've prayed, I've sought God, and you still feel like you're in that dark place. Well, he said these words. He said he felt like his ways was totally enclosed. All of these things. So he goes on and begins to talk about more things he faced. He felt like that he was filled with bitterness. And this is what I want to talk to you about a couple of minutes here. He said, he hath filled me with bitterness and made me drunken with wormwood. So he felt like because all of this problem, all the things he faced, he was bitter. I have met a lot of folks that were bitter. Matter of fact, I preached a camp meeting together with a great friend of mine who's gone on to be with the Lord by the name of L.L. Collins. And Brother Collins, during that camp meeting, he preached a message on better or bitter. So we got to decide which one we want to be, better or bitter. He felt like he was filled with bitterness. Don't let the darkness, don't let the change, don't let what you face cause you to get filled with bitterness. Believe me, this is something I faced in my life, and probably a lot of you listening, a lot of Christians have had to battle at some time in their life bitterness. But you know, when you are bitter, the only one you're hurting is yourself. And sometimes we get bitter because we can't show mercy. And I told you, I've been in that spot. But I found out the only way to get mercy is to give mercy. So the Bible teaches that. New Testament, the Bible teaches that. So, I learned in my own heart to give mercy and to be merciful. So even we as people, we need to learn to be merciful and show mercy to others. Now here he said, I was filled with bitterness. So I'm just trying to give you a few of these things that he felt and that he was going through. He said, I feel like I've been removed far off from peace. That's verse 17. He said, I feel like any peace of mine, any peace that I could have is so far away. So you may be like that today. I'm restless. I feel so far from God. I feel so far away from just peace. I've had folks tell me before, I just can't find any peace. I just can't have peace. And this is kind of how he was feeling. But then he said in verse number 18, he said, I remembered my affliction and my misery. So listen, he was thinking about it. He hadn't forgot all of his afflictions, all of his misery. And I don't have time, but I could go through some of the things he faced, his imprisonments and in a dungeon, in dungeons and things of that nature. But I don't want to talk to you about that today. I'm just going to tell you how Jeremiah felt. But I thank God for this. Even though in verse 20, he said, my soul hath them still in remembrance. He couldn't get them out of his mind. But he said, but when I recall to my mind, therefore have I hope. So no matter if you feel enclosed in a dark place with chains all around you, with change about you, and there's no peace, and you feel like there's no hope, all of these things, all we have to remember is what I read. I'm going to read it again. It is the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. So look up this morning and be encouraged, because God's mercies is the reason that I've not been consumed. It's the reason that you have not been consumed. It's the mercies of God. And then he goes on to say, and they, what was they? That was the mercy. His mercies, because the Lord's mercies were not consumed, his compassions fail not. They are new every morning. So today, I want to say to you that when you wake up in the morning, every single day, new mercy. Sometimes we feel like the night is so dark, and we feel like we have wept and we have cried. There's been times, even myself, I have laid in bed, I've cried and I've prayed, sought God and asked God, Lord, where are you? I've been there. But I want to tell you this, no matter how dark the night is, no matter how many tears you shed, as Psalmist David said in Psalms chapter 30, he says these words, for his anger endureth but a moment, but in his favor is life. So God wants to give you life. And he goes on to say, weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. Now, I love this verse. It said, weeping may endure. It really didn't say it would. He said it could. Weeping might endure, it may endure, it could endure, and it might not. But even if it lasts all night long, joy is going to come in the morning. So lift up your head, child of God. Look up. There is going to be joy coming in the morning. Man, I want to say to you today again, my prayers is with you, everyone that listens. I try to pray before I do a podcast, and I try to say, Lord, I know I don't have enough knowledge or wisdom or enough of the right words maybe to say, but please take my words and let them help someone. That's my whole intention for this podcast, to be a help and a blessing, not only to the church I pastor, but to anyone that listens. So my prayers is with you today. And remember, God's mercies are new today. Every day, every morning, his mercies are new. So today, I want to say I hope you have a great day today. Hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope you have a blessed week. My prayers is with every single one of you that are listening in today. God bless you. Amen.